Hey team, welcome back to my channel. In this video, we're going to learn how to reverse engineer foreign keys. Let's do it. Let us begin part 4, reverse engineering the foreign key. We'll be using sys.foreignKeys, sys.foreignKeyColumns, and of course, I can't get away with not using sys.objects and columns. So it's best that you start at part 1 and work your way down to this part 4. This solution has 4 tables. In there, I create primary keys and, you know it, foreign keys. Foreign keys will point at all of my primary keys. The first table we will use in this demo is country lookup. Country lookup has 2 columns, code, country name. Code char2, also my primary key. Country name, n varchar for 60, not null, not null. These both fields are required. I prepared an insert statement. Let's see the data in that table. Excellent. That is our first table. We have 3 to go. Our second table, state lookup, oh my goodness, it uses a foreign key reference. It will reference country lookup. Notice country lookup, it says there better be a column there called code. Let's go up there and take a look. Yes, code. Is it a char2? Yes. Is it a unique key or a primary key on that column? Yes. So this will work. Notice I'm also creating a primary key on country code and state code. That makes up my primary key for state lookup. Let's see the data that's available in state lookup. Notice that we have 2 rows of data available for this demo. In our third table, customer type is an integer, primary key, type description, varchar 30. Both of the columns not null, that means they're required. I did an insert statement. We're starting with the looker all the way to never a buyer. Let's see our data that's available. And that is the third table. State code, state lookup had our first introductory to a foreign key. However, this table, customer, is going to have quite a few, and this is where we're going to do all our learning. Notice customer has a CID, customer ID. It's an integer, and it's also our primary key. Notice all of our fields, not null. That means they're all required. On our first constraint, notice I'm saying foreign key country lookup. Foreign key is the name of the column that's in customer. Notice country code. It is a char2. We know from country lookup that was also a char2 and it was the primary key. Notice the column in country lookup is code. It is a primary key and it is of type char2. If you are unfamiliar with onUpdate and onDelete, there are 4 types of actions that we can perform on a foreign key. I have a video that will walk you through all of the rules. I recommend if you are unfamiliar with these, do that as soon as you finish this video and then you will be the expert. Our next foreign key, we'll look at the state lookup table. Notice that we say add constraint FK state lookup. The foreign key is on 2 columns, country code and state code. It references the state lookup table. Remember, the primary key of state lookup had 2 columns. They were country code and state code. Once again, we have a onUpdate and onDelete, both of type no action. Our next foreign key is going to go up against the customer type. The column that we're going to be using from the customer table is called cusType. That column references the table customer type and the field cusType. The data types are the same. These are both integers. Once again, we use the onUpdate and onDelete of type no action. I will insert 5 rows of data into customer so we can have some data to work with. Let's see the data that was inserted into customer. Notice that we have 5 rows of data. And this is just a simple statement that joins all the tables together. Let's just execute this. And you can see here that we have our customer ID, the country code, the foreign key reference to the country lookup table, and I got the country name, the state code. Look at this, I get the state name, so you know I did another join. The customer type, the integer, I went and got its name. And that is the 4 tables that we're going to use to reverse engineer. The objective for learning how to reverse engineer foreign keys boils down to this one statement. Notice our input is only the name of that customer table, and we go and use objects, foreign keys, foreign key columns, back to objects, and then over to columns to go and get all the data that we're going to need. As you can see, I went and got my main table, customer, and then I got my reference tables. You remember going through country lookup, state lookup, and customer type. These were my main column. These were my reference columns. And you can remember when we set up those foreign key constraints, the action type of no action for each of our foreign keys. We will now go step by step and investigate each sys object and see how the foreign key can be reversed. But this is the final statement. So if you're going to need to start typing, press pause now, and this is the SQL statement that you're going to need. Let's do it. All reverse engineering begins with sys.objects. Notice where object.name equals customer. That's going to get us the main value, our object ID. Notice the value 7575 and some more numbers. I'm only ever going to say the first 4 numbers or the last 2, and hopefully you just understand that I don't want to say that whole number. So 7575 is customer. Let's do it. Now on our next one, I'm going to actually execute all 3 of these rows, and that is really going to make you understand what's going on. Let's do that. So from sys.objects, we're getting object ID 7575. In our next statement where we're selecting from sys.foreignKeys, notice I'm getting that same object ID 7575, and I'm assigning that to F keys. So when I join that in the second statement, notice all these 7575s. But the R key ID is the reference table. Remember those lookup tables like country lookup, state lookup, and customer types? Those are called reference tables. R key ID. I think you can clearly see the values here. Perfect. Another important fact to point out is in the F key ID, notice that is what we're using the object ID. You can clearly see that this value 7575 is customer 7575. You can clearly see that. So F key goes back to our original table. R key is our lookup tables. In this execution, we went back up against system object for customer, and that gave us the 7575. You know that now. But now we're going up against sys.foreign_keys. And notice that we're using that 7575. Notice 7575 is our object ID. Notice inside of sys.foreignKeys, that is the parent object ID. You can clearly see the mapping there. Now, F foreign key country lookup, foreign key state lookup, and foreign key customer. These are the constraint names, and they have their own object IDs. I think you can clearly see what's going on here. So these object IDs will actually be our next step of unwinding all of this. So from sys.foreignKeys, notice that's the top result set. We get our foreign key name and then its object ID. But the parent object ID, 7575, we know that's the customer table. If you scroll over to the right, notice the reference object ID. This is the name of the table of the primary key of the foreign key. So we say foreign keys point to primary keys. So these are the lookup tables. In our second statement, foreign key columns, notice our constraint ID. Notice 78, that is the number up here, 78, 80, and 82. Now, the reason we have 2 here is because in the state lookup, we needed 2 columns, the country and the state. Hopefully you can remember that. Now, parent ID 7575, we know that's the name of the customer table. Now, these columns for the parent and the reference, these are the column IDs in the tables. And notice that the reference object ID, this is the name of the table, the reference table. So here are all the foreign keys, the sys tables that we're going to be using, sys.foreignKeys and sys.foreignKeyColumns. And there you have it, team, reverse engineering the foreign key. Hopefully you saw all the dynamics. You saw the pointing at a primary key. You understand that a primary key can either be primary key or a unique index. Just has to point at something that makes the row unique. Secondly, the data types have got to be the same. And that's the only rule. Well, not only, there's 2 rules, and now you know them. You also saw how that I was able to go through the sys tables and reverse engineer that. Step by step, I walked you through it. Hopefully this video is all you'll need. But if not, I'm sure there's a bunch of other great videos out there to help you. Now I have one that you probably should watch, and it is, I think, labeled Foreign Key, and it will teach you all of those action types. There's 4 of them, and you should need to know each of them. Okay, team, I appreciate your time, your support, and I look forward to seeing you back in my next video. Have a great week.